Well, hi. This is a review of just some core concepts. For some of you who have had me as a professor before, well, it's a good review. But for those who haven't, there are underlying concepts, there are foundations that are in a lot of my cohorts and a lot of things I teach. And I especially wanted to just get you off to a quick start with this as we go into this semester. So I hope you find this useful, and I look forward to your comments on it. At any rate, so defining success today, all right? Can I assume that today will be successful for you if today it's personal, there's some insights that make sense, purposeful, it enhances the foundation of this course, and it's meaningful. You learn some things that you can actually use in your career. And that's defining success for this, and frankly, in general, all of my courses and all the cohorts that I teach. Now, actually, this was the first lesson. I start off with every meeting. Have in business, learned this years ago when I was at Johnson & Johnson, start off with success. And why? Well, one is when you define success up front, right, and ask them, is this successful for you? One, it says immediately, this is very different than most meetings I've been in. Most meetings, you walk in, you say, who's important? It's the person who called the meeting. What's important? Whatever they say at the front of the room. You get a lot more out of it when it's about them. When you start off up front and get them participating, would this be successful for you? First, it establishes it's about them. When it's about them, they engage more. Two, it helps set some criteria, right? Think about it. Most people walk in a meeting, they have no criteria for success. At the end of the meeting, they walk out, you hope they come to the conclusion it was a success. But with criteria, it's much clearer if you achieve success. Three, it gives you permission to talk about the topics that are discussed. Sometimes I add more detail on things that would be success. And if they agree, once they agree to them, they own it. You have permission to talk about them. Four, oftentimes, it uncovers some issues that you didn't realize were on their mind. Oftentimes people come to a meeting and until you get to what they thought was important, they're only half paying attention. So uncovering them up front, you gain a lot from them. Five, it creates buy-in to the outcomes. What are we trying to achieve? And because of all that, learning is enhanced because they're more engaged, they're participating. It's about them. And at the close, think about it. When we can walk away from a meeting and emotionally feel like it was successful based on criteria established up front, good things are more likely to happen. All right. So foundational things that are reviewed for some of you might be new for others of you. And let's just start off. This is a master's degree level program. It was a major study by Forbes magazine. What do corporations want that they're not often getting out of graduate schools? One is the ability to work in team structure. Two, frankly, is the ability to make decisions and solve problems and with imperfect data. Three is the ability to communicate verbally with people both inside and outside the organization. Four is the ability to plan, organize, and prioritize work. Five is the ability to obtain and process information. And six, the ability to sell and influence others. Now, let's think about the implication. One, we know in graduate school, most of you hate team assignments, but they're really important. And the objective, a good master's program, is to help enhance that ability to work as a team. Two, the ability to make decisions, solve problems. But here's the issue there, right? Most of the time from first grade all the way through college, frankly, grad school, is they give you perfect information. And if you can memorize how to use the perfect information, you get an A. Well, the reality of the real world is there isn't perfect information and you're always best guessing. So the ability to make decisions and solve problems with a best guess is critical because the business world is all about best guess. Three, the ability to communicate verbally with people inside and outside the organization. Now, being able to succinctly help people understand what you're talking about, what's in it for them. And frankly, how many people can do that? Four, ability to plan, organize, and prioritize data. A lot of you are, balancing act. You got personal things going on, career things going on, school things going on. whatever. And for a rigorous master's degree program, you got to plan, organize, and prioritize what you do. The way to obtain and process information. What do I mean by that? You don't have all day long in the real world to process information because it's constantly changing on you anyway. Again, it's making decisions and being able to make the complex simple so you can make decisions. But if you can't communicate it to others, what's in it for them? Why would they change behavior? It's a lot of the things we try to accomplish in the curriculums that I deal with. So let's go back to some of the key things, just as basics. The data in school. What's the difference between the data in school and the data out there? Think about it. Since first grade, you got perfect data. If you memorized how to use the perfect data and you played back to the teacher, the professor, exactly what they wanted, which was always the right answer, you got an A. Well, that's not the real world. A, you're not dealing with perfect data all the time. In fact, you're lucky to have 10% of your data is perfect. You're doing great. Two, the data is constantly changing anyway. So you're always making a best guess. Two, it's a source of discipline. Well, think about what discipline is. It's doing what you don't want to do and doing it anyway. Well, for most of you, you achieve getting into graduate school because throughout your life, somebody's probably helped you maintain discipline. Maybe it was your parents helping make sure you did what you didn't want to do and doing it anyway. Maybe some teachers, maybe it's some coaches, various things in your life. Maybe it's a boss. Here's the problem. Throughout school is often someone helping you stay disciplined, doing what you don't want to do, doing it anyway. And as you know, if you competed in anything, the difference between good and great is always discipline. Well, in the business world, organizations don't see themselves as responsible for your discipline. And for a lot of people, they move from an academic environment and can't understand why they didn't do as well in a business environment because, look, we're not wired to be disciplined. We're not wired to want to do what we don't want to do. We know to be great. To do what you don't want to do, you know it's the right thing to do. So think about it. What got you into graduate school? Probably you had good grades, probably had a pretty decent ability to memorize. You probably had decent intelligence. Those were your talents. Here's the problem. What does it take you to succeed, right, outside of graduate school? And it's totally different things. It's your communication skills. It's your teamwork skills. It's your ability to sift through data rapidly and find what's really important and push out the stuff that isn't. It's your analytical skills with imperfect information and ability to make decisions where you're pretty sure you got the right decision, but you're not positive. My objective is to help you develop your applied talents and skills. So, look, it's all about your return on investment, right? It's all about you. What does that mean? Well, one, if you get lost in this course, just think back to high school, some of your most vulnerable times in life, because most things you need to know for business, you already learned, but most of us forgot them because it's mostly about relationships and teamwork. And think back to high school. We learned a lot of those things in very challenging ways. The second thing is business return on investment, to some degree, life is return on investment. And what's your primary asset? Your asset is time. And the key is getting the best return on investment of your time, right? So how do you get the best investment? Most people are reactive in life, reactive to family needs, reactive to friend needs, reactive to school needs, reactive to career needs. But you get a lot better return on your asset of time by viewing your personal time and professional time on a return basis, right? And think about it. If you did, how could that make a difference in your life? If not, what are the consequences of not doing that in your life? Let's talk about what does that really mean. Let's think back to high school, what we learned about relationships, how we're really wired versus how we'd like to think people are wired. So think back to the concept of dating. I mean, that's the essence of relationships. What's the hardest part? Well, getting a date. Why? The fear of rejections. That's critical. We learned in high school. We're wired to avoid experiences we don't want and put more emphasis on avoiding versus gaining. The second thing we learn in dating. Well, I learned what she felt about me had more to do with how she felt about herself when she was with me versus how much she knew about me. And that led me to the conclusion, well, wait a second. I noticed that the more she did the talking and the more I demonstrated I cared and was truly listening and respected her, the more she liked me. Which then led me to the conclusion that, and the recognition that the key to the relationship was how good I was at asking questions. Demonstrating I really cared, demonstrating that I really respected her. And think about that. Most of our training in business is how to tell stuff. We learned in high school, the key was how good we were at asking good questions. And the third major part learned in high school is the importance of vulnerability. Look, we're wired to avoid bad experiences, but it's a direct relationship. The more vulnerable a relationship is, the deeper it can go. And it's a choice in life. If you choose to have very vulnerable relationships, the good news is you'll have much deeper relationships. Bad news is you're going to get hurt more often. There's no right or wrong answer there, but make sure you're choosing which strategy fits you best. So what's the implication of all this in relationship? One, trust. It's your most important asset. And trust comes from an equation of demonstrating respect and care. Two, it's truly understanding, cause and effect, critical listening, critical thinking. But what drives behavior? It's the experience the other person wants to avoid primarily and secondarily to gain. That's why we learned in high school, we are wired to avoid risk, which is even more important than seeking gain. We learn the importance of questions versus telling. It keeps the focus on them. We learned in relationships and opinions, their opinions, it's more about them and how they feel about themselves and not you. Again, we learned about the correlation, vulnerability. The more you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the deeper the relationships, if you choose to do that. The bad news is you'll get hurt more often. All right, what did we learn about teamwork and how we're really wired? Well, if you did anything competitive in high school, if you look back and ask the question, what was more important? A great strategy, which is how you did things in the specific plans, or a great culture? People feel like they were part of something important. They belonged. They trusted who they were with. And most of us had a takeaway on that, frankly, culture eats strategy for lunch. A world-class organization that's great on culture and a good enough strategy is going to kick butt over an organization who's got a much better strategy, but only an adequate culture. Here's the weird part. Have you ever seen a course called Strategic Culture Leadership? No. Why? Because there's no right or wrong answers. And in academics, we like to have a right or wrong answer. But we can manage culture strategically. It's just that it's all best guess. And again, we learned discipline, which we got through anything competitive in school, doing things you don't want to do and doing them anyway. We got those things. But after school, in your career, it's all yours. So what's a recipe for a great culture? Well, it's effective leadership. It has nothing to do with what level in the organization you are. Everyone can be a leader. It's an attitude. So think about great culture. One, it's got healthy tension. right? Sort of like a rubber band. Think of the best coaches, right? The best coaches, if you have a rubber band, if it's too loose, you've got anarchy. It's no effect. If you're too tight, it hurts. They want to avoid you. The key is that healthy tension. That comes from the good questions a great coach and leader asks and the data that they share. The second key thing, it's a focus on outcomes, right? So when there's too much oversight in leadership, the employee doesn't own it. The teammate doesn't own it, right? So the key is focus on the outcomes and be there as a mentor to help guide how to get it done, but keep the focus on what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to help people avoid the experience they want to avoid, the experience they want to gain of people that depend on our team, our department, or our company. Great culture demands high standards. Set the expectations high. When something doesn't go right, immediately put it in the 3 buckets. The organization I've been in, every Monday morning, we look back last week, what didn't go according to plan? And it's one of 3 reasons. And if you put it in those 3 buckets, you're more likely to have a great culture. 1, the process needs to change. The process, like sports, is just a play. We need to modify it. 2, someone didn't understand. We need to educate more. Those are all leaders' responsibility. But 3 is an individual's attitude or capability didn't get it done. We're going to let them know, but that's their responsibility. And 4 is clarity of core values. People understand what's expected, what's acceptable behavior on the team, and what's not acceptable. Those are some of the key things of a great culture and being a great leader. So we also learned about strategies in high school. If we compete in anything, think about it. Let's picture a football team or a soccer team or a hockey team. What's the coach first do? They identify what are the threats and opportunities from the other team. They don't focus on every player. They focus on what are the key things that's a threat, and what are the key things that, man, they get a weakness. It's an opportunity for us. So it's an external analysis. Then what do? They're very honest about their own team. What are we really good at? And what are we not as good at? Our Achilles heel. And then they put it together for effective plans. And what's an effective plan? We leverage our strengths related to external opportunities. Call that the sledgehammer. When it's an external opportunity, in other words, you identified a key weakness in the competition, and you have a major strength that can take advantage of it, you got a sledgehammer. And the key to business is putting most of your efforts on a few sledgehammers. And you can't do every one. You got to prioritize them and pick them. And 2 is a little bit of investment in protecting your weaknesses relative to the outside threats. That's your Achilles heel. What's the implication? I'm trying to fix people. You want to help them cover their and protect their Achilles heel, be good enough, but put most of your efforts on helping them take their strengths and take them to a whole new level. And that's a key to leadership. So what are the sources of our internal strengths and weaknesses? 1 is our strategy, our plans, tactics, where we focus resources. 2 is our structure, how we're organized to get things done. 3 is our skills, how we innovate, how we implement, delivers results. 4 is our systems, how we gain information, make decisions with it. 5 is our resources that we have, financial resources, intellectual resources, asset resources, and probably most important is our culture, the guiding beliefs, feeling special. What's the implication? It's still all best guess. And the key is being like a chiropractor, right? Strategy that's integrated. So you look at those things and you say, where do we have specific strengths we can take advantage of? And where do we have some weaknesses that we at least want to protect the Achilles heel? Then external opportunities. What are the conditions? Just like a football team. What are the characteristics of where we're competing? The geography. It was a football game. Where are we playing? And what's the field like? And what's the weather like? 2, what are the rules of enforcement? Depending on where you're playing, there's sometimes location bias. 3 is what are the capabilities of the competition? Who's challenging us? Where's our support coming from? In sports, it's our fans. What are the alternatives that other people have? Other options rather than using us individually, our department, mostly internal, our company externally. So investors have other options. Why should they invest in our company? Employees have other options. Why should they stay with our company? Distributors and retailers have other options. Why should they buy and stay loyal to us? And most important, customers, they have other options. Why should they continue buying from us? And even the resources available to, the access to things we have need for, right? Who are suppliers? So at the end of the day, the game of business we learn in high school, it's SWOT analysis. Externally, what are the opportunities and threats? The most important ones internally, what are strengths and weaknesses? Team excellence is how you implement. It's a culture of healthy tension, discipline, and resiliency. You're going to take shots. You got to bounce back quickly. And 2 is decisions driven by ongoing measurements in constant adjusting to changing facts and quickly making adjustments. So what are the implications? Put most of your investments in your strengths combined with external opportunities, your sledgehammers. But some investment in your weaknesses and threats, the Achilles heel. Now, in terms of your career, change your definition of customers and vendors. They're both internal and external. Let's change the definition. A customer is anybody that depends on you that has a need. And a vendor is when you are satisfying that need. So be great at it internally and externally. What's a great customer do versus a good one? A great customer doesn't share, this is what I want. A great customer says, this is what I want and why. Let me share with the experience with what you give me, I'm trying to avoid or gain. Because if you understand what I'm trying to accomplish, you might see some ideas that I didn't see. What great vendors do. They not only do what they were asked for, they ask, well, why? What's the experience you're trying to avoid or gain? I'll give you exactly what you asked for. But if I know what you're trying to accomplish, I may see some other ways to add value. Think about it. If I'm a great customer demonstrating that respect, is there a why? And please give that to me, but you might see other things. Here's how I'm planning on using it. When you're a great customer, people are motivated and they do more for you. And great vendors, same thing. You're a great vendor. They'll always want you around them. It can be huge for your career. The implication is when you have a need, be a great customer. Now I'll explain what you want, why, but what you plan on doing with what you asked for. What are you trying to avoid? What are you trying to gain? And when you're spotting to a need, be a great vendor. How am I going to give them exactly what they asked for? Then try to understand why they're asking for it. What's the experience they're trying to avoid or gain? So what's the game of business? Think chess, all the complications, all the different things that you see. But communicate checkers. Give an example. If a woman is just had a baby, she's in the hospital, and she went through tons of different things along the way, good, bad, details, whatever. She had to understand all that. When people come to visit, what's important to them? Show me the darn baby. Show them the essence. They hired you to see all the implications. They just want to know the key things they want to know. And if they want to know more, they'll ask. So why do you think chess and just communicate check? Your responsibility to do the analysis and see all the different options and make the recommendations. How do you do that? Well, you gather the facts, you sift through them, you integrate what do they all mean, you figure out the implications of them, you consider different options, you rule out a bunch of options, you make your recommendations. Direction, right? Think chess, communicate checkers is not because you're smarter. It is because it was your responsibility to invest the time to understand the complexities beyond the essence. But the complexity may only be a waste of their valuable time. And it may also cause barriers to action too much. Well, how do you sift through data? Well, if you think about data, it all comes down to everything got caused good or bad in life, by one of five things: who did it, what happened, when it happened, where it happened, and how they happened. Great business people are disciplined to look at every situation and say, is there an important who did it? Or is it important what happened? Or is it important when it happened? Or is it important where it happened? Or is it important how it happened? They look for that goal. What was really critical? And then how to identify how critical it was? It's the answer to why, the effect, right? The implication is without the why, there's no real understanding and there's less chance of action. You learn that as a parent, probably. If you share with your kid, I don't want you doing this, and you turn around, there's a good chance they still may be doing it. If you explain why, the experience you're helping them avoid or gain, that's what gives it insight. That's what gives it meaning. That's what is more likely to change behavior. So data, logic is all about looking for only 5 causes of anything good or bad to happen in some combination of them. Find just the important ones, ignore everything else. How do you prioritize it? The answer to why and explaining the why. Because without a why, there's no education, there's no insight. And frankly, without the why, you're not demonstrating respect. Now, here's my hypothesis. If you go out and eavesdrop on other conversations at school, in restaurants, in stores, at home, with friends, here's my hypothesis that I think is going to shock you when you look for it. Most common conversations share some combination of who did it, what happened, when it happened, where it happened, and how, the facts. Very few include the why. Amazing. We're not wired to explain why. The implication is there's a lack of true learning. And when you don't explain why, you're not demonstrating the key to trust, care, and respect. So without the why, you're not demonstrating care and respect, which lowers trust. So here's an exercise to help you do that. Take a sentence that you would share either with a friend or in school or family member, whatever, and ask yourself, can they just say so what to what you just said? And usually the first 3 or 4 sentences they can, because it's facts. So every time you state a fact, add one of these clauses and add another sentence. And when you run out of facts, you get to the goal. Let me give you an example. The roofing industry, right? So picture someone sharing, look, with a customer. Most roofers think that their only job is to keep weather out. Well, that's just a fact, okay? That's because what they learned years ago, to keep the weather out. They were wrong. The result of poor roofing even can put your family's health at risk. That's going to shock a lot of people. Here's why. Since people have made their homes more energy efficient, that's a fact. This creates an airtight home. That's a fact. You'll appreciate that the warm, moist air that is used to leak out of the house now goes up in the attic because it's more energy tight. The home's tight. Still facts. Well, as a result, when you're mixing warm and moist air with organic material in a dark environment, you're creating mold. Again, a fact. You'll appreciate that when your attic is properly ventilated, the result is helping to protect your family's health. And here's proof. Most asthma is an allergic reaction to mold. Notice the emphasis. Protect your family's health. Right? That's an outcome. That's an experience you're trying to avoid or gain versus just the facts that contribute. All right. So the importance of questions, dig. Reality is when people run out of facts, they share the goal. The goal is the emotions and opinions that remain, which is what drives most decisions. Because what's the driver of decisions? What's in it for me? What's the experience I want to avoid? What's the experience I want to gain? Here's the weird part. When we're explaining something to somebody, our comfort zone is the logic. That's what we know. But their comfort zone is their opinion. We boil down our decisions based on opinions. Why? Because with an opinion, it's less likely we're being called out for being wrong. If we make decision purely on facts, someone may say, that's not accurate. We use facts in decision making to support our opinion. Most decisions are made on opinions. But when you explain things to people, our comfort zones of logic, and you see the problem. So what does that mean? The implication. Our comfort zones of logic. We got to appeal to their comfort zone. What are the key opinions that they have that they boil it down to what they're trying to avoid and what they're trying to gain, and enough facts to support it? That's the key to great communication with any constituency that has other options: employees, shareholders, customers, suppliers, whatever. Which now ties to a core to everything I do, analyzing different people's behavior. I call it the why theory. One, whoever generates the most trust, creates insight, and drive the most action. So what's trust? It's your most important asset. What's the recipe? We learn in high school: demonstrating respect and care. What are the ingredients? Explaining why, which we're not wired to do. It's having as much discussion up front as we can through the questions that we ask, which demonstrates respect and care. And frankly, taking good notes, which demonstrates care and respect. Now it's the analysis of communication. We got to think chess, we got to communicate checkers. That's the insight. Our insight is chess. What we communicate is insight is checkers. But what's the recipe? It's cause and effect. There's only 5 things that cause anything good to happen or bad to happen. Some combination, or just one, or just 2, or maybe all 5 of them. Who did it? What happened? When it happened? Where it happened? Or how it happened? How do we know how important it is? Why? What's the experience that was not good that it caused? What's the experience of good that it caused? Well, that actually drives behavior. It's the experience someone avoids or gains based on the experience with you, whether it's an employee, a shareholder, whatever. The recipe is they want to know what's in it for me, the experience you're helping me avoid or gain. That's what drives behavior. So core themes that you're going to see through everything we do. Strategy is where you place your bets, right? It's a talent, it's the time, the assets. It's your differences versus their other options, and the advantage to help and how it helps employees who have other options, shareholders who have other options, customers who have better options. Why should they deal with you versus their other options? It's based on your best guess. Reality is cruel. You got to be brutally honest. Alignment of your true capabilities and resources, the internal strengths and weaknesses versus the external opportunities and threats, and integrating them. 3, culture. It drives. It's the most important driver of success. People want to feel like they have purpose in their life. Change is guaranteed. You're going to have lots of change. Key is make sure there's healthy tension to help lead that change. Communication excellence drives success. And it's best when it's outcome focused, not so much how to get something done, but the people that depend on us, that have other options. What are we trying to help them achieve? It's all about people make decisions on what's in it for them. Therefore, our job is to constantly focus on how to help people and not us achieve what they want versus their other options: employees, shareholders, customers, whatever. You want an organization that's constantly learning, and you can only learn through continuous improvement and running scared. And that takes teamwork. You will face crises in anything you do. The key is expect the unexpected. And once you're planned, then deal with it. Get up and bounce right back. And world-class, does it look and feel like? It's discipline, doing what you don't want to do and doing it anyway. So at the end of the day, strategy is where you place your bets. What do you stand for as an organization? What's your overall promise? 2, every constituency, employees, shareholders, customers, they have other options. How are you similar to their options? But most importantly, how are you different than their other options? That's your advantage. And then you invest in the time and assets to make those things happen. But what's important is it's the excellence for them. The moment of truth. Were you reliable? Did it deliver the experience they're trying to avoid or gain? Are you constantly improving? If not, why would they stay loyal? 3, are you appreciative? At the end of the day, trust is the cord that holds things together. and you focus on the most important results. And the bridge is you. It's your leadership, regardless of your title. What are you doing strategically to generate trust, demonstrate care and respect? What are you doing to demonstrate insight and understanding? Think chess, communicate checkers. 5 causes of anything good or bad to happen: who, what, when, where, how. And the why is a priority. But what drives decisions? It's the experience you're helping avoid or gain. 2, we know culture is the most important thing in an organization. It comes from healthy tension, questions that you ask and the data that you share. And it's purpose driven. People feel like they belong. They're part of something, they're part of something special. It's your information systems, the data that you gather and how you make decisions with it. Why? Because business is all best guess. And why is it best guess? It's always changing, and you're dealing with imperfect facts. There are 4 kinds of facts. Gold is really important and really accurate. In school, 100% is what you get is gold. In business, you're lucky if it's 10. 2, there's a ton of vampires. That's accurate information, but it's less important. But it sucks the blood away from what's really important. You can't focus. If you try to chase 2 rabbits, you're not going to catch any of them. It's the brick walls and barriers. It's inaccurate information, but someone else believed it. And if someone else believes it, don't try to go through it. Work a way around it. And it's the ghost, the assumptions you've got to make. And that's the glue that holds the gold together. The why theory helps you evaluate and optimize everything with people. Trust, your most important asset, demonstrating respect and care. It's the insight, the analysis. Checkers, cause and effect. 5 things that cause anything good or bad to happen. How important is the why? Think the chess, communicate the checkers, but drive behavior. And behavior is using all of that to then communicate for everybody that's got another option other than you or your department or your company, shareholder, employee, customers, whatever. What's the experience you're helping them avoid, and what are you helping them gain? And where do you make your investments? Internal strengths and weaknesses match up with opportunities and threats. So invest in your sledgehammers. Internal strength, external opportunity. Invest a little bit in your Achilles heel. Internal weaknesses, external threats. And the financial game of business is RONA. The income, which is the top number, comes from the income statement. The bottom number is the investment, comes from the balance sheet. The higher your RONA is, the easier it is to get people to invest in your company because you're returning to them the return that they need. So if you found this session as an overview of the foundation, successful for you, right? Personal, insights that made sense, purposeful, helps build the foundation of this course, and it's meaningful. You actually learned a few things you can use in your career. Hope you found this useful. Thank you, everybody.